and Ali Koshib has attacked my village, and this was by Ali Koshib, Muhammad Zain, and Ali Omar. The Janjaweed started to attack the area, and they brought all of the men to a public square, which is called the Square of the League, and 120 of the men were killed, most of whom were from the young adults and children. End of quote. Please consult Annex A12. Mr. President, Your Honors, this is another evidence which supports and corroborates what has been already mentioned by the prosecution, and especially here it corroborates the prosecution's memo, in particular paragraphs 2 and 5 addressing contextual elements under Articles 7 and 8. It also corroborates with paragraphs 17 and 19 of the common elements for modalities of individual criminal liability. And it also corroborates with paragraphs 118, 119, 120, 126, 130, and 131 of the prosecution's memo. Also, another victim that I represent has said, and have said to me personally, on August the 14th, 2003, our area was attacked by the Janjaweed militias, led by Ali Koshib. They came from East Bendizi. During this attack, they killed everyone that they laid their eyes upon by firing at them and setting the houses on fire, and they totally demolished these houses. They destroyed the farms. The people's belongings were looted, and they burned all of the corpses and discreated them. And he continues to say, a countless number of women were gang raped by members of the Janjaweed. In this event, my parental aunt, my father's sister, was killed, and her name was Kaltoum. And here, please refer to Annex A7 of the list of evidence, which speaks about the aunt of the victim who was murdered on that day. Mr. President, this testimony corroborates the prosecution's memo, in particular paragraph 5, addressing contextual elements under Article 7 and 8. It also corroborates with paragraph 17 of the common elements for modalities of individual criminal liability, in addition to paragraphs 32, 36, 38, 41, and 55 of the prosecution's memo. Another victim, and here I will mention the victims so that I support this, that there is evidence that everything that has come here in the prosecution's memo with regards to the crimes that have happened, that there is evidence of that. This victim has told me personally that I quote, our area was attacked by the Janjaweed militias led by Ali Koshib and Abu Qasim. Before this attack, there were many of the vehicles, which were government vehicles, that came to tell the people that the militias were coming to this locality to take their food. And here by food, they mean the corn that they have. And they warned the people not to be frightened of them. A few hours later, the Janjaweed attacked. And they set the villages on fire, they killed the people, they raped the women, and they looted the livestock. Mr. President, here these quotes show us from the heart of these incidents what has actually happened. In addition to the evidence that have been collected to confirm this, This victim has also said, and I further quote, "We managed with my family and a lot of other people to hide in the farms in Wadi Baro. And on the next day, a second attack happened where the remaining, whatever was remaining from the previous day, was also set on fire. On the same day, we went to Mokjar and we stayed in Mokjar around 8 months. Then we went back to Bindisi. After this, Ali Koshib has attacked once again and he killed, arrested and raped a number of civilians." This testimony, Mr. President, also corroborates with the prosecution's memo, in particular paragraph 5 addressing contextual elements under Article 7 and 8, as well as paragraph 17 of the common elements for modalities of individual criminal liability, and also the paragraphs 32, 33, 36, 41, 51, 55, and 56 of the prosecution's memo. Mr. President, your honorable judges, with all of my due respect, with regards to everything that has been attributed to Mr. Abdulrahman, who is known as Ali Koshib, which constitute crimes against humanity as per Article 7 of the statute and as laid out in the prosecution's memo, the legal representative of the victims supports very strongly the prosecution's memo's reference to these acts and believes that Mr. Abdulrahman, known as Ali Koshib, knew that he committed these acts as part of a widespread and systematic attack directed against the civilian population. B, that he intended for his behavior to be part of this attack. With regards to the acts attributed to Mr. Abdulrahman, known as Ali Koshib, which constitute war crimes as per Article 8 of the statute and as laid out in the prosecution's memo, the legal representative of victims, represented by myself, believe that Mr. Abdulrahman, known as Ali Koshib, knew that the people that he targeted in these attacks, which were included within and covered within the Geneva Conventions of the 1945. He also knew the factual circumstances proving this protected status. And lastly, he knew the factual circumstances which proved the existence of an armed conflict. Mr. President, your honors, and now I will move to my second part of my presentation, which talks about the description of the harms that afflicted the victims as a result of the crimes perpetrated against them by Mr. Abdulrahman, known as Ali Koshib. Mr. President, your honors, since 2003 and since all of these incidents happened, the victims have been waiting for this moment where they can see those people that represented to them a point of fear that they have been exposed to due to these crimes that they've been exposed to, so that the world would realize the brutality of these acts committed against them and the atrocities they have been exposed to during this time and in this locality. Mr. President, your honors, the harms and losses that has affected the victims as a result of these most serious crimes which have been committed against them by the suspects, we cannot count actually, and we cannot realize the negative impact on these people and their families. And if we go through all of the the acts that have been perpetrated, we cannot number them because there are many negative impacts that cannot be numbered, but it stays with the mentality of the people, and it stays in their lives. It stays as emotions and would only be removed by justice. Mr. President, Your Honors, all of the victims have lost their families. They've lost children, spouses. They've lost money. They've lost belongings. Some of them were exposed to physical and mental torture, which they are still suffering from the harms, material and psychological, and it remains with them until this moment. Some of the women were raped and were also defenseless because they could not resist themselves. They could not resist because it would have meant that they were killed. Some had their belongings looted or destroyed. The men felt subdued when they saw the women and the children being raped before their own eyes without being able to protect these women, because it would have meant that they would have been immediately killed. Some of the wives were severely subdued when they saw their own children killed before their own eyes without being able to save them, which would have gotten them killed too if they were to resist. Some of the youngsters were repressed and terrified, deterring them from saving their own families, which would have also meant that they would have been killed if they were to resist. And lastly, after we described all of these atrocities, Mr. President, Your Honors, now I would like to say that what has been committed by Mr. Abdulrahman, known as Ali Koshib, and all of his men, of all of these atrocities, has put these victims in front of two choices: either accept death immediately or continue the rest of their lives also dead. This, in fact, is what these victims are suffering right now. They feel that, in fact, because they have witnessed all of these crimes and atrocities, they were not able to defend their own families, their wives, their children, their parents, their fathers and their mothers. Mr. President, Your Honors, I now move on to my third point. And here I would like to convey the concerns of the victims. Since the events have erupted, the victims' lives have collapsed, and their hope to return home was lost. They have expressed their views and their concerns as follows. The victims that I represent have expressed how their suffering grew twofold. Not only were they victims of the most serious crimes which have been committed in those areas which we have talked about, and during this time that we have talked about as well, they have become now refugees, with no rights or lacking from any basic rights, living in very dire conditions out of their homeland. They have also expressed to me that justice is delayed. And in truth, the slow justice is also a lack of justice. And they are all waiting 18 years now. They are hoping that one day they would see with their own eyes that this justice would come true. These victims do not feel safe anywhere they are. whether inside the country or outside the country. This safety will only come to them if justice is served and if those perpetrators are held responsible and accountable for these atrocities. The victims in exile or in refugee camps are in the most severe forms of material and mental suffering as they seek to earn a decent living. Their children are suffering extremely in terms of their health and state of mind, and they wish, and I wish as well, that this justice would achieve security for them. I would hope that it would end their suffering. The victims look forward to achieve justice and to live in peace and to hold those involved accountable, which upholds the principle of accountability and helping to end impunity. Impunity leads to the repetition of these atrocities and crimes once more. Mr. President, Your Honors, one thing that is really also another concern of these victims is that they hope to see justice. We hope that the path of the justice would take up all of the investigation, other crimes as well, which we hope that there would be enough to put this case in front of a trial. Mr. President, Your Honors, I finish my presentation and I thank you very much now for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amin, for your presentation. And indeed, it was a pleasure for the Chamber to allow you to speak in your beautiful language. And we thank the interpreters for translating your submissions. Well, now we will still have 5 minutes, but I deem it's appropriate to break now. So we'll adjourn for half an hour. And when back, the floor will be for the Principal Counsel for PCV, Madame Massida. Thank you very much and see you later.
All right. Veuillez vous lever?